episode number 122 of the LSR Podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by the brightest minds in all of the gaming industry. With me, I have Dustin Gouker. I have Adam Candee. You can follow them on the Twitter machine for free, and you should, at Dustin Gouker, at Adam Candee, 2 E's. Know why. You can also go in, subscribe, rate, and review for this podcast. Really do appreciate all of the great feedback that we've gotten so far. Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google helps us climb the charts, so we do appreciate all of that stuff. We'll talk about New Jersey. Interesting numbers coming out of there. We'll talk about Florida because we have to. It's the big news, big state. We'll talk about that, of course. Connecticut, what's going on there? Live, not live, what's happening? DraftKings, the Entain stuff, a little bit more coming out of that. But let's go ahead. And Adam, let's kick things off here with New York. And we got a little bit more deeper information here about the whole plan in New York.
So we'll start with appropriate credit to Tom Precious of the Buffalo News, who was the first to report a lot of this information. But we have now seen The Matrix. Are you ready for The Matrix? There's the New York sports betting tax matrix. The red pill apparently is, do you want to pay 64% on your taxes? And the blue pill takes you right back to where you are right now, which is nowhere down the rabbit hole. So what we've seen is that the top bid is in New York. We don't know who placed the top bid, but the fact that we are now seeing tax rates means that the New York State Gaming Commission has selected its top bid. And now other bids who submitted lower tax rates now have the information on what the tax rate will be to decide if they want to match that and be a part of the New York sports betting ecosystem. I could sit here and try to game out the entire chart for you in terms of how many platform providers and how many sportsbook operators, et cetera, et cetera. Just understand this. At the bare minimum that's required by law, 2 platform providers, 4 sportsbook operators, the tax rate on gross gaming revenue would be 64%. And in case you're wondering, yes, that is by far the highest in the country, even when you factor in lotteries and management contracts and everything like that. The one thing I would say is that it's not likely to be just 2 platform providers and 4 sportsbook operators. As you put more platform providers and more operators into the state, the sliding scale goes down on that tax rate. The way we game it out, it kind of looks like 50% is one of the more likely numbers of where this lands. That was the threshold that former Governor Andrew Cuomo set before he resigned, and we should find out more in the next few weeks here about who placed those bids, who was scored highest, and who actually will get a license in New York.
Dustin, the question that I keep getting asked from people in New York is not just when do I get to do this, but who am I going to get this with? Like, who am I going to actually get to bet with? And I know that we don't know this for sure, but can we at least give those people some sort of idea as to who they may be able to place their bets with?
I got nothing. We have literally no idea who made this bid, who is going to be accepted. Like Adam said, you can look at this matrix, which is way more complicated of a concept than it needed to be. They created this giant chart that what makes your eyes glaze over when you look at it. Here's what it boils down to: small number of operators, 64% tax rate. Large number of tax operators, probably around 50%. Unlimited number of operators, 35%. The most likely thing is, you look at this thing, the thing that makes the most sense when I look at it is 12 operators at 50%. That's there's no reason for them to add more operators to go down to 35%. There's only, I think we determined 14 people actually operators who put bids in. So you're looking at least a robust number of operators probably being in New York. Again, although I'm also assuming that people in New York are rational actors. As we all know, that's probably not the case right now. The most rational thing would be to get the most operators at the highest tax rate to maximize the market. So that would be the 12 plus 50%. So in that scenario, if we're wishing for the best scenario, that's probably it, and that means pretty much everybody the big names out there: DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars, BetMGM, Barstool, they all get in, plus a bunch of people that you may or may not have heard of, and smaller players, Bet365, which is in relatively small number of states, but has been very interested in New York. So I wish I could say you're going to get a robust number of operators, but there's also this world where they say, more tax money is better, and we're going to take that. So in that case, it probably would be, I would guess it's the big guys, because if they're taking one of the smaller operators or one of the smaller groups at 64%, I think that would be basically a nightmarish decision for New York.
Now, Adam, we know that. I mean, listen, I think people see these numbers, and if you're not really inside the bubble, you don't really understand that sports betting in general is just very small margin business, and there is, once you start talking about licensing fees and, of course, just the cost of operation and paying employees and taxes and this, that it's not a lot of money that actually is left over at the end of the day when this is all said and done. If they're taxed at 50%, let's just assume that is where this ends up settling. If they're taxed at 50%, is this a sustainable thing? Because, I mean, you'd think like, okay, maybe with the amount of people in New York, if there was only 3 or 4, maybe even if they're taxed 4%, there's enough of that to go around. Everyone's going to be fine. Tons of money, tons of players, tons of people, all that. But if we're talking 12, 14 at 50%, do we think that is sustainable?
The short answer is no. By the way, stop reading my Slack chats because we were actually working on exactly that story at LSR.
Sorry.
On kind of breaking down the numbers and putting out there for people like, listen, do you understand what it means?
Then it's a tease, Adam. It's just a tease then, okay? I did a tease.
Do you know what, Matt Brown, if there's one thing I've always known about you, it's that you're a tease.
I know.
So let's talk about what it means for sustainability, right? Pennsylvania has a 36% effective tax rate. But nobody's paying 36% right now because you can deduct promotional spend. And so all of those free bets and all of the customer acquisition costs that are going in a state like Pennsylvania can be deducted, so they're not paying 36%. They will eventually when they're not bonusing and promoting at these levels, but they're not right now. In New York, that's not an option. You're paying the full amount. You are paying tax on every dollar of that revenue. They kind of used their second mover status to learn from other states that allowed this to happen. So the sustainability of that appears to be not high because, as we know, 5% is roughly the historical average for how much sportsbooks are going to win. So if you're to take 5% of gross gaming revenue, immediately cut it in half, and then start adding in overhead costs, really, it has to be a marketing play at that point, right? To have your brand out in front of people, because if you're trying to hold 1%, 2% on being there, the volume that you have to do is massive, just massive. And it's possible, don't get me wrong, it's not impossible to do that kind of volume in New York. Otherwise, people wouldn't be playing the game, but it's a hell of a challenge. The other piece that I would mention here is just matching the tax rate. If you didn't bid the top tax rate, just agreeing to match it isn't even enough to guarantee you're getting a license. It's still up to the discretion of the commission to decide whether you're getting into the market. So think about if you're a 365 and a standalone bid. When you agree to match the tax rate, you don't know if you're agreeing to match 64 or 50 or 35. You're agreeing blindly to however many get into the market. The lack of cost certainty in having a 30% difference in what the tax rate might be, you can hear my voice go up saying it. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, isn't it?
When you're gaming this out too, like you could, like, I don't know, I have a whole lot of idea, but you could also just be counting on New York at some point fixing this mess, right? And some people are. I don't know if that's the best decision, but you could be saying, overpaying for access now, so that when they do fix it and get rid of the ridiculous tax rates and open up the market, you have a first mover advantage. You have a lead. You've already acquired a bunch of customers. Whatever. Like that's at least a possibility in the background here. Is that you eat it now. You count on the legislature that didn't like what Governor Cuomo did. Cuomo's out of office. Like maybe we fix it. Like is that I don't know. You're gambling there too though, that they're actually good. That New York can actually be functional and fix what is not the best system for doing this. But if you're doing that, you're saying, okay, I'm going to overpay now. I'm going to accept whatever tax rate now, and at least I'm in. And then I can and like Adam said, this is. I feel like maybe we've cried wolf on the past, but you're not making money in New York at this rate. If you're immediately paying 64% of your revenue, like you're not making money in New York. You have to all of your money is going into market access. Maybe there's a little bit, but it's like New York then becomes a state that you care about.
It's not a golden goose like we were. Right. You're right. Yeah, like we thought.
In terms of raw dollars,
right.
It is like you can almost boil it down to it's a marketing play. You have to be in. You have to be in New York, or else what are you even doing? Right. That's maybe Is all of the value then tied up in that and the potential future for New York? I don't know, but I can tell you nobody is getting rich if you have to agree to the 64% rate, and that's what they end up with. Nobody's making money. You're placeholding, it's a marketing play, whatever it is. It's not to make a lot of money in New York.
Keep it, and Adam, before you. Yep. Yeah, just one thing to add to what Dustin was saying. If you're planning on it being fixed legislatively, there are regulatory fixes that have to happen too, because there are triggers, and I don't remember them exactly right now, and I apologize for that, but essentially there are triggers in the tax rates that you bid that correlate to the length of the license that you're being given. The higher tax rate you bid, the longer license that you get. I believe the top term was 10 years. So you would essentially be coming in knowing that you could be locked into that tax structure for a number of years based upon the current regulations. Again, regulations can change and laws can change, but it's all part of the gamble.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, they know that some of that money is funneling out of the state into New Jersey. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But I mean, this is something where, hey, look, if you have a bad product, which this might lead to a bad product, given what we've seen in all these other states where the guys are, the operators are super aggressive. They're super player friendly at first, giving all kinds of bonuses, all kinds of different things like that. We haven't seen these crazy juice, the juice wars and stuff going on that we saw in a couple of the other states, Adam. And, look, it maybe in New York, you don't get those people staying home. They're probably, at least a portion of them are still crossing across the border to go to Jersey because it's still just a better product.
And, you have to be realistic about that, right? Like, you have to be realistic about the fact that you're dealing with a different market in New York than you're dealing with in other states because of New Jersey, because of the fact that you already have people who are established in the legal market. It's not like trying to go get all the offshore customers and bring them home or activate new people who've never been sports bettors. You have a fairly dedicated group of people who are, in some cases biking across the George Washington Bridge to go place their bets every day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's going to be interesting for us to follow here and see how this ends up all playing out. Dustin, we have talked several times about this whole DraftKings and Entain thing, and we do at least have a little bit of news, though it's not any news that has us moving one way or the other.
Yeah, maybe not the most exciting thing, but we can continue to rumor about this for the next month at least. DraftKings had made an offer for Entain, $22 billion plus price tag. There was a deadline this week for that deal to either take place or just move on with life. What we got was an extension to November 16th in terms of DraftKings being able to put a firm offer on the table that Entain can entertain. Obviously, the big deal is this is the parent company of MGM, part of the joint venture. That's how MGM got its product to market. So no, not big news, but this deal is not dead yet, which will lead to more rampant speculation about whether it will or won't. And this would obviously send reverberations throughout the sports betting industry. But this is who knows? We could still be talking about this, and it could actually, this at least puts it out there that this is a possibility. I was disappointed in Brad Allen's handicapping of this. He put this as the second favorite behind Entain telling DraftKings to go pound sand. So also disappointed because it was 7-4 odds. I thought Brad was an American odds fan. Disappointed to see that he used those odds instead of American odds.
Seriously, Brad, if you're listening, get it together over there, buddy. Get it together over there. Adam, we are out of soft launch, and we have a new state on board.
And before I get to telling you about that new state, let me go back to its neighbor for just a second, because I hate to leave the people hanging and ask them to do their own legwork on these things. I went back and double-checked the New York tax rates and how they're tied to the length of license. Basically, any bid up to 50% will get you a 5-year license. Any bid over 50% gets you a 10-year license. So 50 is actually a very interesting threshold, because if it goes down to 50, those are 5-year licenses. If it goes up to 64, those are 10-year licenses. Okay. Connecticut is live. You are no longer limited to just 750 people per sportsbook, as it was in soft launch. So you have 3 options. You have DraftKings and FanDuel. They're both partnered with Mohegan Sun and with Foxwoods. And you also have the Connecticut Lottery having partnered with Rush Street to put out its own product that's under the Sugar House brand. So you have 3 options in Connecticut. It's another state that we're looking at as a potential competitor to New York and to Massachusetts, right? Anybody who lives in that area knows that there's a mystical dividing line somewhere in the state of Connecticut where you're either a Red Sox fan or a Yankees fan. Well, there's no dividing line on neither of the states next to you have legal sports betting right now. Massachusetts and New York both do not have any sort of mobile option at the moment. So we expect that Connecticut, which is one of the highest per capita income states in the entire country, is going to be a decent market for those who are in.
Dustin, just refresh me. There's a company that's located in Connecticut that's pretty big in the sports world, right? There's one that's got a decent little name that's located there. Yeah, I thought so.
ESPN. I know all the ESPN folks are excited that they still based there can wager on it. It is a little funny that Caesars is one of the big people with ESPN in terms of having a deal with ESPN, and you can't bet on Caesars there because we only have the 3 limited options: DraftKings, FanDuel, and Sugar House. So, but yeah, that's the worldwide leader has a sports betting option when they're actually in Connecticut now.
Certainly will be interesting, Adam, because at the end of the day, I mean, you've kind of got a built-in. You kind of got a built-in client base here. I mean, like I've been to the ESPN campus. It's massive. It's huge. I know there's a ton of people that work there. There's a ton of people. I mean, like with what's been going on here over the last couple of years, I can only imagine this is like a flip the switch and 70% of those people are like signing up at all these sportsbooks. I mean, it's pretty awesome for Connecticut sportsbooks, actually.
I mean, just imagine with as many texts as Adam Schefter gets in the first place, how many more he'll be getting from ESPN employees wanting to find out what Mr. Editor thinks about who's playing this weekend.
Seriously. Dustin, so we have to give our update weekly on the podcast about Florida. So please, everyone in Florida, listen up. Here goes Dustin's update.
This one's maybe not exciting, but it is, at least if you want to see legal sports betting in Florida in the short term, this is positive news, I suppose. One of the several lawsuits that is out there was dismissed in federal court about allowing Florida sports betting to move forward under the control of the Seminole tribe. So this is one potential avenue that seems to be shut off. Now, there are still 2 other lawsuits out there that are in the D.C. federal court, district court in Washington, D.C., that are still ongoing, still have a chance to stop sports betting from moving forward. But right now, that's the news. We don't have any other news on a potential launch date. I think some of this legal stuff, they're trying to let that work out. We now know that Hard Rock isn't ready to launch its sports betting product as a monopoly there in Florida, even if it could legally. So I mean, and again, like we said last week, they could have started last week based on the language in the tribe, so in the compact. So we're still sitting here, slightly good news, but also the bad news is we're also looking at a potential monopoly for Florida. Not ideal for consumers. It seems like we're talking a lot between that and New York. We're talking about a lot of potential bad news for consumers in terms of what you're going to get. So I think Hard Rock will put something good out there if and when they do launch. But anyway, the news: 1 lawsuit gone, 2 more still out there that threaten the future of Florida sports betting.
Adam, this was some pretty interesting news that came through. Listen, we talk a lot on here about wanting to make sure that everything is getting done the right way, that everyone's going about doing this the right way, promoting the right way, making sure that the right messaging is getting out to the people out there. And the NFL partnered up with an announcement yesterday that there's going to be a pretty big investment in making sure that that's the case.
Yeah, this is one of the first of its kind that we've seen between the National Council on Problem Gambling and the NFL. And in full disclosure, I sit on an NCPG communications advisory committee, and we've been talking about this release that was coming out, and the idea behind it is stick to your game plan, always bet responsibly. Now, what it's going to do is you're going to see more responsible betting messaging worked into various NFL platforms. So quite obviously, you've seen all of the ads that have been blitzing your various TV, streaming, radio, internet, whatever, for the various sportsbooks that are partnered with the NFL. We know 7 of them have some level of partnership deal with the league. Now you will see some smarter, I think, coordinated messaging when it comes to responsible gaming. The idea, they say, and I'm going to read this directly from them, is not going to be new to anybody who's been part of the space, but it is probably going to be new to a lot of people who are just getting into it. Have a game plan, set a budget, know your limits, use licensed, regulated operators and bet responsibly. There are websites you can go to for more information. So it's good to see the league taking this step forward. And I think also, as Keith White, the executive director of NCPG, put it, this probably sets a pretty good template for other professional sports leagues to incorporate something similar, right? They talked about could be the PGA Tour, could be Major League Baseball, all of these other leagues that are fairly invested in the gambling space right now that hopefully can use this as a template.
Dustin, you would have to imagine, I mean, the NFL being the big boy, leading the way here, that all of the other leagues will, follow suit at some point. It might not be immediately here, but I would imagine some point over the next few months, we see some sort of something from just about every one of the major leagues that are out there. Because, again, NFL, everybody knows, is king. Once they've made their move, you probably just follow suit.
Yeah, and we like to crap on the leagues, so I'll give credit where it's due here. This is a great move by the NFL to do something and be proactive about it, and they spend some time not just trying to make money off of sports betting, but to provide a message and to work with a group with the NCPG. Like, I've known Keith and the work they're doing for a long time. Don't sit on a committee like Adam does, but they do good work, and this is great to see. This is how, we've talked about this in lots of podcasts. This is how we get control of it. The leagues should be very vested interest in making sure we keep responsible gambling under control before it gets out of hand. So this is great to see. I would love to see other leagues to do it, and I'm really happy to see this just for everyone, for people who have problems with gambling, people who don't yet, and for the leagues to do something that I think is really valuable if they're going to make money off of sports betting.
Yeah, Adam, this was when it came through for me. It made me smile just strictly from the standpoint of, hey, look. This wasn't anything that was really getting forced. I mean, listen, we have mentioned it, as Dustin said several times on this podcast and all that. But, I mean, look, we're still pretty early in the game. We're still pretty early in a whole bunch of the markets opening up and stuff like that. To see the NFL kind of getting in before they, air quotes here, had to or have to, I think is a really positive step for just the industry in general.
Yeah, and I want to add one piece that I left out of the first part of the news because it's easy to say, well, we have a partnership. We're working together. There is not an actual dollar amount listed, but it is discussed as a multi-million-dollar, multi-year campaign. So we know the NFL prints money, and it's good to see them putting some of it toward a resource that is often underfunded at the state level.
Dustin, we knew it was coming. It was only a matter of time until that number popped out of New Jersey. And guess what? It is here. Fire the cannons. Hear the fireworks. Look at the rainbows. See the unicorns jumping. It is here. The number was hit.
Do we get like confetti and stuff?
Yes.
Down?
Yes.
Can we edit the confetti in? New Jersey hit $1 billion in handle for a single month. First time that's happened in any U.S. jurisdiction. Again, yeah, you're right. We knew this was coming at some point. They barely scratched across $1.011 billion, which is even those little decimals are a lot of money when it comes down to it. But we hit this kind of magical number, and we knew it was going to happen. But this is kind of, again, New Jersey continues to set the bar of what this looks like. And it's also really interesting vis-a-vis New York in that we see New Jersey, which really the first online sports betting market in the U.S., if we're not counting Nevada, when it's in-person registration. And this is like New Jersey has really done pretty much everything right. Wide open competition, relatively low tax rate, so people can innovate and market and not worry about it. So this is interesting that you're going to have these two states side by side. New Jersey, which has done it very well, maybe the state realizes a little less tax revenue from it, but they are also getting just a bigger market out of it because of that. And it'll be, New York just has more people, but what will that mean when they open up with either fewer operators, limited operators, higher tax rate? This will be a good proof of concept of what this all means. So anyway, big numbers out in New Jersey. Revenue also up to 82 million, I believe, in the month, and online casino on top of that also hit a new record, I believe, as well, alongside that. So lots of good news in New York for online gambling. And again, if you're doing online gambling, you should be following along with what New Jersey has done, because they're obviously doing something right.
And to our friends up north who love Molson, who love poutine, who love ketchup chips, all of that, there's some news over on LegalSportsReport.com about what's going on up in Canada, maybe some new additions to people who are going after some of the market share up there. There's a story on Michigan sports betting handle as well, and talking about those numbers. And what we could be looking at is some interesting news on Maryland as well. Adam and his crew, just tons and tons of content, tons and tons of work. So be sure and go in and take a look at all of that as well, because they have been working overtime over there. So be sure and take all this in. Adam, I know you normally take us home, but there was a little bit of interesting news that came through yesterday, strictly because it's whenever we see names of people who are big in whatever it has been. I mean, Dustin and I, since we've been around since the poker days, like, we've seen names pop up in the sports betting industry that were, we knew from the poker days. And then it goes into DFS, and obviously a ton of the names that we knew from the DFS days going into sports betting as well. And sure enough, there was one of those names that kind of popped up yesterday as launching a new project in Nigel Eccles, who is going to be launching a sports betting platform. That being said, it is not what we have come to traditionally talk about here on the podcast. It is going to be one on the blockchain. So it is going to be a crypto-based sports book. And you look here and it says who is behind the project. It is on the website, and it says it's built by many of the founders and early employees that built the multi-billion-dollar sports gambling company FanDuel. It says, where is it based? First, remotely is first priority, but its employees are mainly concentrated in Glasgow, Edinburgh, and New York. And it says, when will it launch? We're targeting early 2022 for our beta launch. And so just another interesting kind of wrinkle here in all this, that some of these guys are coming back around. They're coming back around, though, but going at it from a different angle this time.
Yeah, and I'll leave it to you guys to weigh in on the arc of Nigel Eccles, since you were around more for the DFS days than I was. We obviously have talked to him on the podcast in the past when he was working on the Flick app, crypto is a subject we haven't covered a whole lot. There's enough news dealing with traditional currency that we haven't really gotten much to crypto, but that is definitely interesting news to see.
Yeah, and Nigel's a smart guy. Like, I mean, he basically helped create the daily fantasy sports industry, and which then turned into the leaders in sports betting. So, when you hear him get into this, you think, he's been thinking about this for a while. It means he's putting some thought behind it. It'll be interesting what we see. We've seen DraftKings dabble in the crypto with an NFT marketplace. There's a lot there, and we're still such we talk about Bitcoin and crypto a lot, and just society at large, but it's still early days. And where's crypto and betting heading? God only knows. But I'd want to be out in front of it if I were anyone. And if you're creating a platform now to deal with how that will look, makes some sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Who knows where this all leads? If it becomes something, I've tried so super hard to wrap my brain around all of the everythings that are going on. I mean, you and I are at least proud owners of sloths, so we do have that. We own an NFT. Do you feel special? I feel special, like I'm one of the cool kids. I just like sloths, so that's right.
That's
it.
Even if it didn't work out, it'd be all right.
Adam, do you want us to buy you a sloth as well?
I would like to quote the great philosopher Busta Rhymes, who asked on Twitter last week, should I buy a house or a link to a pixelated picture of a monkey?
Yes. The Bored Apes have gone absolutely crazy as well. It's just it's interesting. Anyway, just some news. Again, it's a long way away. There's beta launch, not it's still several months away. But as that progresses, we'll try to keep you in the loop there. And as mentioned earlier, all the stuff we talk about here is in written form over on LegalSportsReport.com. Please go in, take in all the great words over there. Really do appreciate the support on the pages. And of course, from the podcast aspect as well, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google. We love that you guys go in and give us the ratings and reviews. If you want to follow the guys, and you should, it's absolutely free. Just smash the button at Dustin Gouker, at Adam Candee, 2 E's, no Y. If you hate yourself, you can follow me at Matt Brown M2. For Adam, for Dustin. Talk to you guys next week.